The American dream, what was once considered key to financial freedom, is now nothing but a distant aspiration for many. It is a lie told by the rich to the poor, only to lure them into a trap. Despite all the peace and liberty talk, the American dream is nothing but a vicious cycle of slavery that's run by capitalism. Today, big corporations have made it nearly impossible for anyone to develop a business and flourish significantly. Not only businesses, but these corporations have taken over the job sector as well. The citizens of America are unable to secure a high-paying job even if they're smart and highly educated. More than half the American population works multiple jobs to keep up with the high inflation rates. Some of these jobs pay much less than what an average citizen of America deserves, but to cover the bills and everyday necessities, they are forced to take on side hustles. Well, America is supposed to be the superpower of the world, right? So why can't an average citizen of America fulfill his dreams? And more so, why isn't this loophole getting any sort of political attention? This is the dark side of the American dream. Although poverty has reduced in the United States over decades, it is still becoming chronic for certain population groups. Termed deep poverty by the US Census Bureau and extreme poverty in general terms, almost 48% of the poor people in the United States have cash income below 50% of the national poverty threshold, which is $13,590 per capita. Deep poverty is chronic by nature. Some economists believe that a generation in deep poverty is likely to transmit the poverty to the next generation as well. It is like a poverty trap. But why is it so hard for successive generations to avoid the poverty trap in the United States? There are certain reasons for this. Today, it is much easier to achieve the American dream outside of the US rather than staying and striving for success within the United States. Professor Zachary Parolin discovered in 2023 that if a child grew up in poverty in the United States, they have a 42% higher chance of staying in poverty as an adult. What's more mind-blowing is that the intergenerational persistence of the poverty rate in Denmark and Germany is 1/4 of that of the US. Not only these two countries, but also Australia and the UK, have a lower poverty rate compared to the United States. This discovery is a testament to the fact that upward mobility and economic success mimic a relay race where the current generation passes the baton to the future generation. For instance, the generation belonging to the bottom 20% of earners will start the race from all the way back, whereas the generation belonging to the top percentage of earners will start the race ahead of everyone. So, when the race starts, everyone has to run as fast as other teams, right? If the current generation belonging to the bottom 20% of earners won't work hard and thrive for success, they will pass a baton of failure to the future generation, which will further pass the baton to their future generation, and so on. Over time, nothing will change, and the gap between the family of low earners and top earners will widen, becoming increasingly difficult to close. The ability to close this gap is what we call the American dream. Some studies suggest people are twice as likely to close this gap in Denmark than in the United States. To understand why, we need to go back in time. In the 1960s, the advancements in computer technology brought access to international trade, which limited a significant number of people out of poverty. Almost 61% of adults belonged to the middle class in 1971 and could afford things like taking a vacation abroad, coffee from Starbucks every morning, and buying branded clothes. However, a proportion of each future generation belonging to the middle class continued to shrink, and this number fell to 50% in 2021. Some lucky lads did move to the upper class, but the majority of Americans were either stuck in the middle class or moved further down. This is only getting worse each day. When it comes to wealth and financial success, the first thing people think about is income per year. In reality, from 1970 to 2020, the middle-class median income jumped by 50% from $59,934 to $90,131, whereas the upper-class median income jumped by 69% and the lower class by 45%. Although the median income did increase by a lot, the real average income barely budged. You see, in economics, real average income is how much you earn while taking inflation into account. Let me explain. Suppose you made $30,000 last year and groceries cost you $100 a month. Now, you make the same amount this year, but the groceries now cost $120 and your real income has worsened because you can't buy as many groceries with the same amount of money. When it comes to a business, the revenue generated depends on how productive the employees are. The more productive the employees, the more revenue a company is expected to make. Since the 1940s, the overall productivity has gone up, and so has the revenue. Yet, the working class earned the same, and the increased revenue ended up in the pockets of the executives. In the 1970s, CEOs used to make 20 times more than their typical worker, whereas nowadays CEOs make 296 times more. For instance, in the first 17 months of the COVID-19, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos increased his already massive fortune by $75 billion. The CEO of Tesla, Elon Musk, added $150 billion to his wealth, and Facebook co-founder Mark Zuckerberg gained $74.2 billion. Now, do you think that the employees working at Amazon, Facebook, or Tesla could earn this amount in all of their lifetime? Hardly so. While the CEOs were making wealth during the COVID pandemic, middle-class Americans were getting fired from their jobs. And this is just one part of the story. Imagine earning this amount and paying no tax in return. Yes, you heard that right. The CEOs of big corporations paid no tax even after earning all this wealth, just because the US system prefers income from wealth and offers the big corporation avenues to avoid taxes that are not available to working people. This has been the case for decades. According to this graph, the income of the richest 1% has always skyrocketed compared to that of ordinary Americans. Moreover, the very richest 0.1% have seen their after-tax incomes shoot upward even faster. You see, if the after-tax incomes of all Americans had grown together at the same pace since 1979, then by 2018, the total income of households in the richest 1% after taxes would have been $850 billion less. This income could have been used for public services like cutting child poverty nearly in half, providing childcare, providing guaranteed paid family and medical leave, expanding affordable housing, and helping millions of students afford college tuition. But none of that happened, right? Instead, America shifted from prosperity to rule to the rich takes all. The income gap between the richest and poorest is the most powerful indicator of a functioning and healthy society. And sadly, the income gap between the rich and the poor is too damn high. Now remember one thing, these billionaires are capable of ending poverty and mobilizing millions, but won't ever do so. The billions running big corporations are also responsible for the saturation of the job market. According to a study, US companies don't always hire the most qualified candidates. They either hire an existing employee's child, and these nepo kids earn almost 20% more than they would otherwise. The problem is that the more you believe in the American dream, the more you'll blame yourself for the broken system. If you fail to secure your dream job, I bet you'll blame yourself. But think about it, shouldn't you be blaming the corrupt American system or the nepo kid who got the job as an inheritance? What was once a reality for many is now just a fading dream. The idea that every American has an equal opportunity to move up in life is false. Over the past decades, social mobility has declined immensely, median wages have stagnated, and the younger generation is expected to be poorer than their parents. However, all of this is only the beginning of a greater crisis, and things are expected to be much worse in the future.